As I said at the previous hearing of this subcommittee, I intend for it to be a primary forum for both shaping and articulating the policies of the United States towards Africa. I believe that China is a global threat that must be confronted globally. And that means region by region, territory by territory, and nation by nation. The challenges posed by China and Africa are vast. However, there are also immense opportunities for advancing America's national security interests. Today's hearing focuses on China's dominance of critical minerals in Africa and on the importance of strengthening U.S.-Africa partnerships to secure the United States supply chain of critical minerals. We face acute threats to those supply chains.
Man, there is never a boring moment on the global stage right now. From the ongoing war between Russia and Ukraine, to the tension between Venezuela and the US, to the never-ending trade war between Beijing and Washington, the geopolitical landscape is getting tense everywhere you look. But today, I want to focus on one specific thing: China's growing influence in Africa and how that is starting to seriously shake up US foreign policy across the continent. Over the past 2 decades, China has really been expanding its influence around the world, especially across Africa. They have been striking business deals, building infrastructure, and forming deep partnerships with African nations, places where the US and other Western powers have traditionally held political and economic influence since the colonial era. But lately, China's presence has reached a point where it's undermining US strategic interests in key regions. And of course, that is not sitting well with Washington or some European nations who are watching the same thing happen. So, to put it simply, China's rise is bad news for Western powers. And the US is starting to show signs of frustration, even desperation over how much influence Beijing has accumulated. Let's check out this clip.
As I said at the previous hearing of this subcommittee, I intend for it to be a primary forum for both shaping and articulating the policies of the United States towards Africa. I believe that China is a global threat that must be confronted globally. And that means region by region, territory by territory, and nation by nation. The challenges posed by China and Africa are vast. However, there are also immense opportunities for advancing America's national security interests. Today's hearing focuses on China's dominance of critical minerals in Africa and on the importance of strengthening U.S.-Africa partnerships to secure the United States supply chain of critical minerals. We face acute threats to those supply chains, and there are enormous opportunities for American businesses to flourish in Africa. For years, the Chinese Communist Party has been working systematically to dominate Africa's critical mineral sector. China is pouring billions into its Belt and Road Initiative. It uses infrastructure loans to trap African nations in debt and then leverages that debt to secure mining rights, as it does in so many other contexts to advance Chinese interests. China has gained control over cobalt, lithium, and other rare earth minerals in countries like the Democratic Republic of Congo, Tanzania, and Zimbabwe. The CCP's activities have enabled China to attain a dominant global role in the processing and refinement of critical minerals, and to dramatically influence global supply chains, availability, and prices. Today, China refines more than 70% of the world's cobalt and controls a vast share of rare earth processing. That should alarm every American, because it means the economy, the energy transition, and even the defense supply chains depend on the Chinese Communist Party. The United States relies heavily on China to refine critical minerals, even those that originate in Africa. It is a glaring, persistent, and acute national security threat. No doubt, wherever possible, we should be seeking to onshore our critical minerals supply chain. In my home state of Texas, there are bold initiatives taking place to ensure that for certain minerals, the entire chain is in the United States, from mining through manufacturing. Those projects are ongoing and will expand significantly, but it would be reckless not to simultaneously seek partners abroad to build reliable supply chains, including and especially in Africa. Under the Trump administration, and thanks to President Trump's leadership, that is exactly what the United States is doing, and that will be the focus of this hearing. Creating opportunities for American companies to enter the African market and to build lasting partnerships is essential to shaping a more secure future in Africa. The extraction, processing and refining, and manufacturing of critical minerals is complex, but it is also an opportunity to shape U.S. and to reshape U.S.-Africa relations from aid-based to investment-led engagement. One of our most promising opportunities is the Lobito Corridor, which has emerged as a strategic alternative to China's Belt and Road. Minerals and security are directly linked to the U.S. national interest. In the DRC and Rwanda, tensions over mineral-rich regions have fueled regional instability for decades. The upcoming peace agreement and the new regional economic integration framework presents a rare opportunity to achieve stability while securing access to strategic resources. But if we fail to act now, China will be able to shut the United States out of Africa entirely. That is unacceptable. The administration is pursuing an emerging commercial diplomatic strategy. We are providing tools and demonstrating to our African partners that America is a reliable partner. U.S. businesses should be integrated into the strategy and work in tandem with commercial advocacy. I look forward to hearing today's witnesses, the Honorable Jonathan Pratt and Scott Woodard, testify on this important issue. And with that, I now recognize Ranking Member Booker for his opening statement.
I'm really grateful to the chairman for working together.
Now, Africa is a critical piece in this global puzzle. So the big question we need to ask is, how is this battle between China and the US going to affect Africa's security and independence in the near future? Let's start with security. Right now, we've got two global heavyweights, the US and China, competing for political influence. And Africa is becoming a new strategic battleground, kind of like what we saw happen during the Cold War. On one side, we've got China steadily expanding its presence and investments across the continent. On the other, we've got the US and European powers who still maintain military bases and political leverage, especially in regions like West and North Africa. And so this creates overlapping zones of influence, areas where African nations could easily get caught in the middle. And if African leaders are not careful, these major powers might end up using African countries as chess pieces in their larger geopolitical games. Now, let's talk about independence. The biggest challenge for African nations moving forward will be maintaining true autonomy in decision-making. Both China and Western world love to say they are quote-unquote helping Africa rise. But let's be honest, both sides are after influence, resources, and access to markets. So the danger here is that Africa could end up trading one form of dependency for another. Instead of breaking free, it just shifts from Western dependency to Chinese dependency. At the end of the day, the future of Africa's independence depends on whether African nations can diversify their partnerships, invest in self-sufficiency, and most importantly, set their own long-term vision instead of letting outside powers dictate it. Because only then can African nations truly stand on its own terms. So yeah, the US is mad, China is not backing down, and Africa is right in the middle of it all. Let me know in the comments, do you think China's growing influence is good or bad for Africa's future? Let's talk about it. Guys, thank you for stopping by. Give this video a thumbs up, leave a comment, and subscribe to the channel for more content. I'm out.